Over the past decade, I've worked with thousands of sellers in some capacity or another. And the very top aspiration and the question that I get over and over is, how do I make $1 million in a single year as a tech seller? In that time frame, I've only seen 18 sellers actually show me their W-2s and prove that they actually did it. So it's an extremely rare feat. But in today's video, I want to go through exactly what it takes to go from wherever you are to becoming $1 million earner as a tech seller. So let's get into it. So the first thing is just to be in the right selling reality. And there's two major components to that. There's your comp plan and there's the rest of what I call your selling reality, which is everything else that's going to be the company that you're at, the product you sell to, your territory, and everything that comprises the environment in which you are going to be selling. From a comp perspective, I've seen sellers make $1 million with anywhere from $100K to $200K as a salary, and then the rest is all upside. And they're typically somewhere between 5 to 20% as a base rate of commission, depending on what they're selling. What I have seen is a bit of a trend. So the sellers who I've seen most often who make $1 million in a year are at a 3x run rate. What I mean by that is they get to $1 million once they are 3x of that year's quota attainment. And again, that's not a formula. It doesn't have to be exactly that. I just noticed that as a trend. The second component is kind of the rest of what I consider your selling reality. You've got to sell something that is at or near product market fit, or it's got to be a mature market, but you have a credible path to ripping and replacing incumbents. Those are generally the two paths from a go-to-market standpoint, and it's almost always an enterprise sale. Over and over and over again, the sellers who have done uncommonly well in terms of total commission at or above $1 million, they've all been doing large deals with large accounts. It is next to impossible to achieve that kind of performance and that kind of financial progress in anything less. The next big area I would say is mindset. So if you want to break this into two really big groups, there are run rate sellers and there are strategic sellers. The vast majority of sellers are stuck in some flavor of run rate sales. What is that? For our purposes, run rate sales is high velocity of activity across a huge number of accounts, hoping that something sticks, and then driving those to being small deals or getting to a no. For me, it's a losing proposition. It's a pathway to burnout, but over and over, I see SaaS companies using this as their main go-to-market motion. It can work for SMB or mid-market. It absolutely will not work in commercial, definitely not at enterprise or key accounts. The other option is my hugely biased preference, which would be strategic selling. Strategic selling isn't necessarily easier. It isn't necessarily less activity. It's just different activity. So instead of spreading oneself thin across tens or even hundreds of accounts through semi-automated, semi-personalized outreach, we really hone in on a much smaller number of very well-selected top accounts. And we invest heavily in each one of them. And it's an incredibly different motion. Instead of going for mid-level players, we're going for senior players. Instead of a product-focused pitch, we're going for something that's much more of a business conversation around real strategic priorities. So let me give you an example of $1 million earner. Kishan Patel is one of the very best reps who I've ever worked with, and he's worked at a number of well-known brands in the SaaS space. And the sales cycle that I thought was an absolute wonderful example is that we started to work together in a coaching capacity, and along the way, he was stuck in an account for almost a year. And then he really upped his game in terms of focusing on the needs and realities of that company, his target accounts executives. The way that he got there is that he leaned into earnings calls. He was selling into a public company who did earnings calls every quarter. Not only did he listen to all the messaging in those earnings calls, he started to analyze the analysts, right? The Wall Street analysts who are on each one of those calls. He found the analyst who worked for the investment bank that represented this target account. And he reached out to this analyst and began a conversation about how to bring efficiencies into this player. That conversation led to a series of introductions that ultimately got him introduced to the new and incoming CFO of this target account. When he got there, he was pre-framed very positively because he was being introduced by the target account's investment bank. What better warm introduction could you ask for? He then worked with that CFO to create a point of view that was rock solid. At the end of the day, what his point of view came down to was, hey, Mr. CFO, I can see that you're trying to influence EBITDA by reducing expenses across the organization, and you're trying to reduce those enterprise-wide expenses by 10% over the next year. I think I can get you 3 of those points. I think we can get 3 percentage points out of the 10 that you're trying to get to. Is that something that you want to engage around? The CFO bit hard. And ultimately where this went was Quiche was able to close an 8-figure deal in less than a month, ripping and replacing a huge incumbent. Essentially, what Quiche was able to do was craft a strong point of view in financial terms, and that led to an 8-figure deal in less than a month, ripping and replacing a huge incumbent. That's the way to do mega deals, and that's the way to make $1 million in a year. The biggest mindset shift that I think every seller should take to move from transactional to strategic selling is to leave the land of being a mountain climber and become a heli-skier. So let's use an analogy here that our accounts are like mountains. And at the bottom of the mountain are the worker bees that have no power, and at the very top of the mountain are the executives that have all the decision-making capabilities and authority over budget. Most sellers see themselves as mountain climbers, that they have to take every step from the bottom of the mountain to get to the top. That's going to take forever, and they'll get to the executive toward the end of the sales cycle. This is a losing value proposition, and it is destined to bring you to either small deals or no deals, because it takes way too long, and as you know, time kills deals. And if you can't get to senior executives early, you're going to waste a lot of time likely getting to a no. Strategic sellers, mega dealers, see themselves as heli-skiers, whereas they don't climb up the mountain, they look for a helicopter that will fly them to the top of the mountain in 10 minutes. Then they spend the rest of the day skiing down the other side, which means getting the sponsorship from a senior executive to spend time with people on their team in the guts of the organization, but they do so with a mandate. Now, if we break that kind of emotion down into specific skills, there are 3 top skills that I see that mega dealers have and develop versus everyone else who are really not invested in these 3 skills. Number 1 is deep account research. Learning about your account and getting smart on that account as quickly and as deeply as possible is the best way for you to prepare for a major deal pursuit. We're not talking about spending 15 minutes Googling a person or looking for press releases or seeing what their latest earnings call said one time. We're talking about hours, days, weeks of ongoing collection of facts that span across a number of major topics. In every account, we need at least to answer 4 major questions. Number 1, how does this company make money? Is it one product? Is it a portfolio of products? Are they subscriptions? Are they all one-time sales? Are they dependent on interest rates or other external factors? How does the company make money? Number 2, what is the measurement of their current level of financial health and what is their trajectory? Is their profit up, down, or sideways? Free cash flow, investment in the business, all of these things, are they going up or down, or are they static? If we're going to behave like a doctor and give a strong prognosis, we have to have the vital signs of the patient. So we have to know their current financial condition and trajectory. Number 3, what are the top priorities of our target accounts executives? Of the 12 major fires going on across their organization, what are the 3 or 4 that they're actually going to put significant funding behind to solve and advance this year? And number 4, what are the industry or market trends or realities that that company is facing right now that's going to determine what we call their business reality? Are they facing new regulations? Are there class action lawsuits? Is there a new competitor that's changing the competitive landscape? All of these things can come together to really have an influence on how you sell into this company. The second skill is developing financial fluency. On one level, financial fluency is a skill, being able to put these numbers together and to create a story. Financial fluency is a number of things. It's a language, it's a skill, it's a way for you to earn credibility quickly with executives and earn their engagement, particularly over time. Financial fluency is not only finding numbers in financial statements or news or interviews, it's also taking those numbers and crafting it into a value story. And that leads to the third skill, which is developing a strong point of view. For our purpose as enterprise sellers, a point of view is the big why behind why a customer or a prospect would invest heavily in your solution to solve a problem, or to achieve a goal. A strong point of view starts with them, not with you or your product. It starts with what's the current reality at the company you're selling into? What are they trying to achieve? What are the stumbling blocks or hurdles in them achieving that goal? And what's the new approach that they haven't considered or aren't trying that they should to be better, cheaper, faster as a solution to solve the problem? Of course, the structure that I just laid out for a strong point of view will naturally be authored in a way that will lead exactly to your solution and none other. So one of the top skills that I mentioned that mega dealers have is financial fluency. It's where you get executive access because you're getting their attention by talking in a language and in a framework that they're talking about their biggest priorities. And when they hear you speaking in those terms, they think, this is a conversation I should be in. If this seller was talking about things in bits and bytes or features and functions and benefits, that's for somebody in the IT department or down in the guts of the organization. But when we use financial fluency, they think, this is for me. So I put together a session on financial fluency that you can attend because the link to register for it is in the description below. In the session, I'm going to go through where to find the numbers, which numbers are important, how to use those numbers to craft a point of view, and how to use that point of view to get meetings with senior executives within your account. So again, if you want to start your journey toward financial fluency, click the link in the description below and get into the next session. And if you want to see how I closed over 160 million in SaaS revenue in the last 8 years of my career, watch this video next.